The rotating rings of Helios Research Station cast ever-changing shadows across Dr. Marcus Cooper's laboratory. He stood before the observation window, watching the dance of light and darkness while reviewing his latest failure. 18 months of research into xenobiological energy fields, and he was no closer to understanding the phenomenon that had brought him here. The soft chime of the lab's security system drew his attention. "Dr. Cooper, your presence is requested in Containment Chamber Alpha," the AI's voice announced with practiced neutrality. "Priority Level 1. Marcus frowned. Nobody used Chamber Alpha anymore, not since the accident 6 months ago that had claimed 3 of their best researchers. He grabbed his tablet and hurried through the station's curved corridors, his footsteps echoing against the metal walls. Security Chief Rivera met him at the airlock, her face tight with concern. "We have a situation, Doctor. 3 hours ago, a ship of unknown origin docked with the station, the sole occupant." She hesitated. "You need to see this for yourself." Through the reinforced viewport, Marcus saw her. The alien stood perfectly still in the center of the chamber, her form both familiar and utterly foreign. Her skin shimmered with a subtle bioluminescence, shifting between deep purple and midnight blue. But it was the air around her that caught his attention, a barely visible distortion, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. "The field surrounds her constantly," Rivera explained. "We learned about its effects the hard way, lost 2 drones trying to conduct basic medical scans. They just disintegrated on contact." Marcus stepped closer to the viewport, fascination overriding caution. The alien turned to face him, revealing eyes that seemed to capture the very essence of starlight, white pupils surrounded by rings of silver. She raised a hand in what could only be a greeting. "Has she communicated?" Marcus asked, already reaching for the chamber's communication panel. "Basic universal translation is working, but she's been waiting to speak with our xenobiology expert." Rivera's tone carried a warning. "Be careful, Cooper. We don't understand what we're dealing with." Marcus activated the comlink. "I'm Dr. Marcus Cooper, xenobiologist. Can you understand me?" "I am Nyara," the alien responded, her voice carrying an ethereal quality that the translation system couldn't quite smooth out. "I seek asylum and answers." "Answers about your condition?" Marcus asked, his scientific curiosity piqued. "About why I cannot be touched without bringing death." Nyara's eyes met his through the viewport. "Your station's reputation for xenobiological research reached even my isolated world. You study energy fields like the one that curses me." Marcus glanced at his tablet, already pulling up data from the chamber's sensors. The readings were unlike anything he'd seen before. The energy signature was complex, almost crystalline in its structure. "How long have you been affected by this field?" "Since my emergence ceremony 3 cycles ago, I am the first of my kind to manifest this power in a millennium." She moved closer to the viewport, and Marcus noticed how the air seemed to ripple around her. "My people called it a blessing. They built me a sanctuary of isolation, treated me as a living goddess." Her voice carried centuries of loneliness. "But I believe there must be more to existence than being worshipped from afar." The chamber's sensors suddenly spiked, alarms blaring as the energy field around Nyara intensified. A nearby monitoring device crackled and sparked before dissolving into fine dust. Marcus watched in amazement as the particles hung suspended in the air for a moment before settling to the floor. "Fascinating," he breathed, fingers flying across his tablet. "The field doesn't just disintegrate matter, it breaks down molecular bonds at a fundamental level. But the pattern isn't random." "Dr. Cooper," Rivera interrupted sharply, "the station director needs to be briefed. This goes beyond standard protocols." But Marcus could barely hear her. His mind was racing with possibilities, theories forming and reforming as he studied the readings. This wasn't just another research project. This was potentially the key to understanding energy field manipulation at a quantum level. "I'll help you," he told Nyara. "But I need to know everything about how this started, about your emergence ceremony, about—" A violent shudder ran through the station, cutting him off. Warning lights bathed the corridor in crimson as the station's AI announced. "Unknown vessels approaching. Hostile intent detected. All personnel to emergency stations." Through the viewport, Nyara's expression shifted to one of fear. "They followed me," she whispered. "The Guardians, they will not allow the secret of my power to be discovered." As if in response, another impact rocked the station. Marcus steadied himself against the wall, mind racing. Everything he'd worked toward, everything he'd theorized about energy field manipulation, the answers were literally standing in front of him. He couldn't let this opportunity slip away. "Chief Rivera," he called out, already moving toward the chamber's airlock controls. "I'm going in." "Cooper, don't you dare." But he had already initiated the entry sequence, his security override cutting off her protests. As the airlock cycled, Marcus caught his reflection in the metallic door, a tall, lanky figure with disheveled dark hair and determined green eyes. If he was right about the field's quantum signature, if his theories about energy manipulation held true. The inner door opened, and he stepped into the chamber, ignoring Rivera's shouted warnings. Nyara's eyes widened as he approached, her hands raising in warning. "Stop, you don't understand, the field will kill you." Marcus continued forward, his tablet's sensors gathering data with every step. "The field isn't random," he said, heart pounding but voice steady. "It's a quantum frequency like a key searching for its lock, and I think," he reached out slowly, "I think I know why I was drawn to study energy fields all these years." His fingers passed through the distortion around her and touched solid warmth. The space station's emergency lighting cast an eerie red glow across Containment Chamber Alpha as Marcus stood facing Nyara, his hand still touching her arm. The impossible contact sent tingles through his nervous system, like gentle electrical currents dancing across his skin. "This defies everything we know about quantum physics," he breathed, watching as his tablet recorded unprecedented energy readings. "The field isn't rejecting me, it's resonating, almost like..." Another explosion rocked the station, throwing them both off balance. Marcus instinctively caught Nyara before she could fall, and the energy field around her flared brilliantly in response to their contact. "Dr. Cooper," Security Chief Rivera's voice crackled through the chamber's speakers. "3 hostile vessels have breached our outer defenses. We're initiating emergency protocols." Nyara gripped Marcus's arm, her starlight eyes wide with urgency. "The Guardians won't stop until they have me. They've destroyed entire facilities to keep the secret of my power hidden." The station's AI interrupted with another warning. "Hull breach detected in sectors 7 through 9. Emergency containment failing." Marcus made a quick decision. "Chief Rivera, we need immediate evacuation to my research vessel in Dock Beta. The horizon can outrun anything in this sector." "Absolutely not. Station protocol clearly states." "With all due respect," Marcus cut in, already gathering his essential research equipment, "we're about to lose the biggest breakthrough in xenobiology since first contact. I'm not letting that happen." He turned to Nyara, who was watching him with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "I know we just met, but I'm your best chance at understanding this power, and you're my best chance at proving my theories about quantum resonance. Will you trust me?" Before she could answer, the chamber's rear wall exploded inward. Through the breach floated 3 figures in ornate environmental suits, their designs unlike anything Marcus had seen. Ancient symbols crawled across their surfaces, glowing with an inner light. "The Blessed One must be contained," they spoke in unison, their voices carrying that same ethereal quality as Nyara's. "The power cannot be understood, it must remain sacred." They raised weapons that seemed to be made of pure energy, but Nyara stepped in front of Marcus, her field intensifying. "No more," she declared. "I won't be your prisoner again." The Guardians fired, but their energy bolts dissipated harmlessly against Nyara's field. Marcus watched in amazement as the distortion around her expanded, pushing back against their attackers. His tablet's sensors were going crazy, recording energy patterns that shouldn't have been possible. "The emergency exit," he whispered to her. 3 meters behind us, my ship's prepped for rapid departure." They backed away slowly as Nyara maintained her protective barrier. The Guardians continued their advance, switching tactics. They began chanting in an ancient language, and Marcus felt pressure building in his skull as the air itself seemed to vibrate with power. "They're trying to overwhelm your field," he realized, watching the readings spike. "We need to." But Nyara had already grabbed his hand, and the contact sent a surge of energy through them both. The field around them pulsed, and for a brief moment, Marcus saw patterns in the air, quantum strings interconnecting everything in the chamber. His mind expanded, touching something vast and ancient. "Run," Nyara pulled him toward the exit as the Guardians' chanting reached a crescendo. They sprinted through the station's corridors, alarms blaring around them. Other crew members rushed past in the opposite direction, evacuation protocols in full effect. They reached Dock Beta just as another explosion rocked the station. The Horizon sat ready, its sleek research vessel design belying the experimental engines Marcus had installed. They rushed aboard, and Marcus headed straight for the cockpit. "Strap in," he called to Nyara as he initiated launch sequences. "This might get rough." The dock's emergency doors were already closing as the Horizon's engines roared to life. Marcus guided them through the narrowing gap with centimeters to spare, bursting out into open space. Behind them, the Helios research station burned. "3 pursuers on an intercept course," the ship's AI announced calmly. "Their energy signatures match no known configurations." Marcus's hands flew across the controls, plotting a course that would take them through the nearby asteroid field. "Hold on tight. Nobody knows these rocks better than me." As they dove into the field, Nyara spoke softly. "What happened back there when we touched? You saw it too, didn't you? The patterns, the connections." "Yeah," Marcus replied, executing a tight turn around a massive asteroid. "That wasn't just energy manipulation. Whatever your power is, it's connected to something much bigger." He glanced at her. "And I think you already knew that." Nyara was quiet for a moment, watching as he navigated through the deadly maze of floating rocks. Finally, she said, "There are archives on my homeworld, texts that speak of a time when my people could shape reality itself, but that knowledge was sealed away, deemed too dangerous." She met his eyes. "No one has ever been able to touch me without dying, yet you can." The archives spoke of this too, of one who would come from beyond the stars, whose quantum signature would match the ancient power. A warning light flashed as one of the pursuing ships got a target lock. Marcus rolled the ship, using a cluster of asteroids as cover. "Let me guess, the Guardians don't want that prophecy fulfilled. They believe some knowledge should remain hidden, some powers left untouched." Her voice hardened. "They made me their living vault, thinking my isolation would prevent anyone from ever accessing the ancient sciences." Marcus grinned as he plotted a course toward the system's magnetar. "Well, they didn't count on running into a scientist who spent his entire career studying exactly what they were trying to hide." His expression grew serious. "But we're going to need help. I know a place, a hidden research facility where we can work to understand your power. And maybe unlock the knowledge that was sealed away," Nyara finished. "Exactly." Marcus executed another evasive maneuver. "But first, we need to lose our friends back there. How do you feel about using that quantum field of yours to help mask our engine's signature?" For the first time since they'd met, Nyara smiled. The air around her shimmered with possibility. Deep within the Cygnus Nebula, the Horizon drifted in the shadow of a massive gas giant. The ship's experimental cloaking systems, combined with Nyara's quantum field, had finally allowed them to shake their pursuers 3 days ago. In the makeshift lab Marcus had set up in the cargo hold, holographic displays showed the results of their latest tests. "The resonance patterns are unlike anything in our scientific database," Marcus mused, studying the intricate quantum signatures that surrounded Nyara. "But they're not random. There's a structure here, almost like a language written in energy." Nyara stood in the center of the scanning array, her field creating mesmerizing patterns in the holographic readouts. The ancient texts spoke of this, the quantum language of creation itself. "My people once used it to reshape reality before the Great Sealing." Marcus adjusted the scanners, trying to decode the complex energy matrices. "And the Guardians turned you into a living lock to keep that power contained. But they didn't count on the field having a genetic component that could recognize compatible patterns." "Like yours," Nyara said softly, stepping out of the scanning array to join him at the console. When their hands touched, both their quantum signatures flared visibly on the displays, interweaving in impossible patterns. A warning chime from the ship's AI interrupted their observations. "Unknown energy signature detected approaching from Vector 739. Configuration matches Guardian vessels." "Impossible," Marcus muttered, pulling up the sensor data. "How did they find us?" Nyara's expression darkened. "The quantum resonance, our experiments must have created a signal they could track." She hesitated. "There's somewhere we need to go, somewhere I should have taken us from the start." "Your homeworld." No, she pulled up the ship's star charts, indicating a system deep in unexplored space. The place of sealing. If we're going to understand this power and stop the Guardians, we need to go to where it all began. Marcus studied the coordinates. That's beyond any mapped routes. The radiation levels alone would tear most ships apart. The horizon isn't most ships, Nyara countered, and with my field protecting the sensitive systems. She trailed off as another alarm sounded. Multiple vessels emerging from quantum space, the AI announced. Energy weapons charging. Marcus quickly began plotting a course. Well, looks like we don't have much choice. The place of sealing it is. He glanced at Nyara. Just tell me you have a plan for when we get there. The archives spoke of a key hidden in plain sight, she said, helping him prepare the ship for quantum jump. A quantum signature that could unlock what was sealed away. I always thought it referred to a device or artifact, but now, she met his eyes. I think it meant you. The first energy blast from the Guardian vessels rocked the ship. Marcus engaged the quantum drive, feeling the familiar pull as space-time distorted around them. No pressure or anything, he quipped. Just have to unlock ancient powers that your people thought were too dangerous to exist. The journey pushed the horizon to its limits. They made multiple short jumps through uncharted space, using Nyara's field to protect the ship's systems from the increasing radiation. Each jump brought them closer to their destination, but also seemed to wear on Nyara. Marcus noticed her field fluctuating, growing unstable. Something's affecting your quantum signature, he observed during one of their brief stops for system cooling. The closer we get, the more erratic the patterns become. Nyara nodded, her starlight eyes dimmer than usual. I can feel it like a pull on my very essence. The place of sealing is calling to what's inside me. She stumbled and Marcus caught her, their quantum signatures flaring at the contact. We need to understand what we're really dealing with here, Marcus said, helping her to the ship's small medical bay. What exactly was sealed away? What were your people so afraid of? Nyara's laugh held no humor. Power beyond imagination, the ability to rewrite the fundamental laws of reality. She met his gaze. But that's not what they truly feared. It was the knowledge that came with it, the understanding that reality itself is merely a consensus, a shared dream that can be awakened from. The ship shuddered as they prepared for another jump, and they thought that knowledge was too dangerous to exist, Marcus finished. So they created the Guardians to ensure it stayed buried. But they couldn't destroy it completely, Nyara added. The power was too fundamental to existence itself, so they bound it into bloodlines like mine, thinking isolation would keep it contained forever. She touched his hand. They never imagined someone would evolve independently to resonate with it. Their final jump brought them to a system dominated by a dying star. Orbiting it was a structure that defied physics, a massive geometric shape that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The place of sealing, Nyara whispered in awe. Marcus's instruments were going haywire, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. Those energy readings, it's like looking at the source code of the universe. Before they could approach closer, space rippled around them as Guardian vessels emerged from quantum space, dozens of them, forming a blockade between the horizon and the ancient structure. The sanctuary must not be breached, their unified voices echoed through the ship's communications. The dream must remain unawakened. But something was happening. The structure had begun to pulse with energy that matched Nyara's quantum signature. Marcus watched in amazement as patterns of light danced between Nyara himself and the massive construct. They're too late, Nyara said, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. The resonance has already begun. Marcus felt it too, a sensation of reality becoming more flexible. The quantum patterns he'd glimpsed before were now clearly visible, showing him the underlying structure of everything around them. The choice is yours, Nyara told him as the Guardian vessels charged their weapons. We can turn back now, let the knowledge remain sealed, or we can wake up, Marcus finished, understanding flowing through him. He took her hand, and their combined quantum signatures blazed like a newborn star. I didn't become a scientist to keep knowledge locked away. The place of sealing pulsed once more, and reality itself held its breath. The void between the horizon and the place of sealing erupted with energy as the Guardian vessels opened fire. But their weapons found no target. The combined quantum fields of Marcus and Nyara had transformed the ship into something that existed between states of reality, neither fully here nor gone. "The ship's holding together," Marcus announced, his voice strained as he maintained their quantum state. "But I don't think we can keep this up for long." Nyara's starlight eyes were fixed on the geometric structure ahead, her form seeming to flicker between dimensions. "We don't have to, look." The massive construct was changing, its impossible angles reshaping themselves in response to their presence. What had appeared to be solid surfaces revealed themselves as layers of pure energy, each containing fragments of ancient knowledge encoded in quantum patterns. "It recognizes us," Marcus breathed, watching as his instruments tried to make sense of the transformation. "The resonance patterns, they're identical to what happens when we touch." A new voice filled their minds, vast and ancient. "The key returns, the lock awaits, what was sealed may now be revealed." The Guardian vessels pressed their attack, their weapons now carrying sounds that hurt to hear, fundamental frequencies that threatened to unravel the quantum state protecting the horizon. Through their communications, their unified voices held notes of desperation. The dream must remain. Reality cannot bear the weight of awakening. Marcus felt blood trickle from his nose as he struggled to maintain their protection. "If we're going to do something, it needs to be now. The ship can't take much more of this." Nyara placed her hand over his on the controls, and their quantum signatures merged more deeply than ever before. In that moment of connection, Marcus saw everything, the true history of her people, the power they had wielded, and the fear that had led them to seal it away. "They were wrong," Nyara said, reading his thoughts through their quantum link. "Knowledge isn't what destroys worlds, fear of knowledge does that." She turned to face him fully. "But this has to be your choice too. Once we cross that threshold, everything changes. Reality itself will shift." Marcus laughed despite the strain. "I've spent my whole career trying to understand the fundamental nature of existence. I'm not stopping now that we're finally at the doorstep of truth." Together, they guided the horizon toward the transformed structure. The Guardian vessels moved to intercept, but the ancient construct pulsed with power, creating a corridor of stable spacetime through their blockade. As they approached the threshold, Marcus felt reality becoming more permeable. The quantum patterns he'd learned to recognize were everywhere now, showing him the code underlying existence itself. Through his connection with Nyara, he began to understand how to read it, how to speak the language of creation. "The Guardians were right about one thing," Nyara said as they prepared to cross the boundary. "This will change everything. Are you ready?" Before Marcus could respond, the structure's defenses activated. Beams of pure quantum energy lanced out, not attacking but testing, measuring, judging. Where they touched the Guardian vessels, reality itself seemed to hiccup, causing the ships to phase in and out of existence. "Identity confirmed," the ancient voice resonated. "The seal may be broken." The geometric structure began to unfold in ways that shouldn't have been possible, revealing layers of reality that human science had never dreamed of. Marcus watched in awe as mathematical principles he'd theorized about became visible, tangible things. But the Guardians had one final gambit. Their ships began to combine, linking together in patterns that mirrored the ancient structure. Energy built between them, threatening to tear a hole in space-time itself. "If we cannot preserve the seal," their voices thundered, "we will destroy the knowledge utterly." Marcus felt Nyara's grip on his hand tighten. Through their connection, he understood what needed to be done. Together, they reached out with their combined quantum signatures, not fighting against the Guardian's power but embracing it, incorporating it into their own resonance. The ship's AI screamed warnings as reality buckled around them. The place of sealing pulsed in response, its rhythms synchronizing with their quantum fields. In that moment, Marcus understood what Nyara's people had discovered so long ago. Reality wasn't a fixed thing, but a conversation between consciousness and possibility. "The dream awakens," the ancient voice declared as everything they knew began to change. Marcus turned to Nyara, seeing in her eyes the same understanding that flowed through him. "We're not just unlocking knowledge, are we?" She shook her head, smiling. "We're becoming it." The place of sealing flared with blinding light as the final barriers between what was and what could be began to dissolve. The Guardian vessels hung motionless in space, their crews witnessing what their ancestors had feared most, the moment when the dreams of reality began to stir. And in the heart of it all, a human scientist and an untouchable alien stood together, their quantum signatures singing in harmony with the fundamental forces of light cascaded through dimensions as the place of sealing completed its transformation. The geometric structure had become a nexus of pure possibility, with Marcus and Nyara at its center. Through their merged quantum signatures, they witnessed reality's awakening, not as an ending, but as an infinite beginning. The patterns, Marcus whispered, watching as quantum equations wrote themselves across the fabric of space. They're not just a language for describing reality, they're templates for creating it. Nyara nodded, her form shifting between states of existence as her true power finally unleashed. My people called it the dream language, the code that shapes all possibility. This is what the Guardians feared we weren't ready to understand. Around them, the Guardian vessels hung suspended in quantum flux, their crews experiencing their own awakening. The ancient knowledge, sealed away for millennia, flowed through all present minds, but instead of the chaos they had feared, it brought understanding. They're not fighting anymore, Marcus observed, feeling the shift through their quantum connection. They're learning. The vast consciousness of the place of sealing resonated with approval. The cycle completes, fear gives way to understanding, the dream expands. But with understanding came responsibility. Marcus felt the weight of it as new awareness flooded his consciousness. The quantum patterns weren't just revealing the nature of reality, they were offering the power to reshape it. A single thought could now alter the fundamental constants of the universe. We have to be careful, he said, turning to Nyara. Your people were right about one thing, this knowledge changes everything. The question is, what do we do with it? Nyara's starlight eyes held both wisdom and concern. We could rewrite the laws of physics, end entropy, make death itself optional, but should we? The answer came not from them, but from the quantum resonance itself. The patterns showed them not just what could be done, but what should be done, the delicate balance between possibility and responsibility. Look, Marcus pointed to where the Guardian vessels were transforming, their crews emerging from their ancient roles into something new. They're becoming what they were meant to be, not guardians to keep knowledge locked away, but teachers to help others understand it safely. Nyara smiled, the quantum field around her no longer a curse but a gift. The prophecy wasn't about unlocking power, it was about being ready to use it wisely. Together, they began to work with the quantum patterns, not to reshape reality, but to expand it. The place of sealing transformed into a center of learning, where those ready to understand could come to study the dream language. The Guardians, freed from their ancient fears, became its first students. You know, Marcus said as they watched the transformation unfold, when I started studying quantum fields, I never imagined I'd end up helping to wake up the universe. And I never imagined my curse would turn out to be the key to something so beautiful, Nyara replied, her touch no longer bringing death but understanding. Though I have to ask, what made you so sure you could touch me that first time? Marcus grinned. Scientific intuition, that, and I've always believed that understanding is more powerful than fear. He gestured at the quantum patterns dancing around them. Looks like the universe agreed. The story of the untouchable alien and the human who defied fate spread across the galaxies. But it wasn't told as a tale of curses broken or barriers overcome. Instead, it became known as the moment when reality itself evolved, when knowledge sealed away in fear was finally understood with wisdom. In the centuries that followed, others would come to the transformed place of sealing, seeking to learn the dream language. They would find not unlimited power, but unlimited possibility tempered by understanding. And at the heart of it all, they would find two teachers, a human scientist and his alien partner, whose quantum signatures still danced together in perfect harmony. Ready for another lesson? Nyara would ask newcomers, her one steadily touch now a guide to understanding. And Marcus would add, with the same excitement that had driven him to reach through that first quantum barrier, let's explore what's possible. For in the end, their story proved what both science and prophecy had hinted at, that the greatest barriers aren't those between matter and energy, or between species and civilizations, but between fear and understanding. And when those barriers fall, reality itself dreams bigger dreams.